better come with something harder than that, because we getting ready to get armored up around here. You're going to need more than a flashbang with us.
Portland Rapid Response police officer has been indicted, allegedly for beating an so-called activist photographer. That's what you're seeing in the mainstream media. That's what you're seeing on Twitter. That's what you're seeing all over, especially locally in Oregon. And in response to that, the entire rapid response team, listen, I know this has been reported already, but there's some nuance to this, because I was actually on the ground a couple days before this so-called assault took place, and people need to understand what was going on in Portland on the ground at this time and why the rapid response team was responding so aggressively, not towards protesters, not towards reporters, but towards rioters. These are people that are committing arson, attempted murder. They attempted to burn down federal courthouses. They attempted to burn down federal buildings, sheriff buildings, police buildings. They were continuing to do this for over 100 days plus in Portland, in Oregon. And I covered a lot of this, and we're going to get into this tonight as well. But as a response, because this police officer was indicted for basically doing his job, don't believe the fake news media, man. Don't believe it. Oh, a reporter got beat by a police officer. Antifa has their own so-called activists and reporters on the ground for the purpose of running cover for the ones committing violence, and also to stage in the media, because if one of them gets hit, what do you have now? A headline, and people on the left actually believe it. That's how it works. But as a response, 50 officers on the rapid response team have resigned. And sources that I have on the inside have reported that Wheeler was actually on a Zoom call. This was a confirmed Zoom call. Even the local Oregon media in Portland actually reported this as well, that Wheeler was asking and begging the rapid response team not to resign for at least a week so they could find replacements. This is how stupid Ted Wheeler is. This is what defund the police gets you. This is what happens when you not only support this, but you vote for these ideas as well. So I'm going to get into some nuance, because people need to understand the context of what was going on in Portland at this time and why the police officers were rightfully responding so aggressively, not against protesters, not against journalists, not against reporters, but Antifa, okay? Rioters. There are journalists, so-called streamers and journalists and reporters in Portland that get a pass by this radical domestic terrorist organization known as Antifa, okay? These people get a pass with Antifa because Antifa knows that they won't incriminate them with any footage or any of their coverage. What does that mean? That these people are Antifa. It's all an operation that all goes together. So before we begin, guys, welcome to the show. My name is Drew Hernandez. You are now watching Drew Hernandez Live. We are 100% independent. So if you guys would like to support the show, check out the merch store. The link is in the description below, or give a one-time donation on my website, drhlive.com. Or we do super chats at the end of every single show. So if you'd like to support us, we're extremely deboosted, over 55K subscribers, and can barely get to 3,000 views. That's because YouTube hates us and they claim to love minorities, but not this one. So yeah, if you'd love to support the show, drop a super chat. We do super chat Q&As at the end of every single show. So if you'd like to support me, you can do that as well. And share this video far and wide. Hit that subscribe button, and also smash and destroy that like button. That helps us greatly, greatly, greatly. And consider joining the DH Alliance tonight. We salute you, every single one of us, on the membership section of this channel. Consider joining for as low as $5 a month tonight. Thank you guys very much. This is the way. So let's get into this story. I know it is Friday night. Happy Friday night, everybody. Maybe you just got out of work. Maybe you're driving home. Maybe you're just chilling. I know it's hot, especially in Arizona. We're having a heat wave in California. So I hope you guys are staying hydrated. Hope you guys are staying cool. Let's go and let's dive into this. Now, I know some other journalists and some other shows have covered this topic, but some of these people that have covered this topic were not there in Portland on the ground. So I have a bit of a different perspective. I've been on Real America's Voice, One America's News today, talking about this all day today, because people need to understand, why were police officers in Portland responding so aggressively, particularly the rapid response team, okay? Were they actually going after protesters? No, they were not. They were going after rioters. That is why they exist, the Rapid Response Team. They're not just going after protesters. They are going after the criminal rioters, arsonists, people attempting murder, the shadow organization known as Antifa, especially in Portland. Now, for those of you that don't know the story, we'll break down this story, and I'll give you guys some nuance. But just to give you guys a little bit of an update, there is a brawl that has broken out between right-wingers and Antifa in Portland and Oregon City right now as I speak. I'm pretty sure we're going to find out what's going on there as well, but it literally is breaking. But I wanted to give you guys some nuance on this situation going on with these police officers because a lot of people don't quite understand it. So let's get this up. Here's the story if you haven't heard it. Portland Police Riot Squad resigns following indictment of officer. The Rapid Response Team, a unit with Portland Police Department, voted unanimously to resign on Wednesday during a meeting with the police union. This follows the criminal indictment of an officer for assault stemming from a riot in August 2020. Sources within the police bureau told the Post-Millennial. Officer Corey Budworth was on the Rapid Response Team, a group of police officers that volunteer for the post and are deployed to respond to riots, civil unrest, and demonstrations in Portland. Budworth was indicted and charged with 1 count of 4th-degree assault, a misdemeanor, and the Multnomah District Attorney Mike Schmidt's office on Tuesday. And might I add, they've dropped over 500 cases of rioters in Portland, okay? The DA, Mike Schmidt's office, he's dropped seriously violent crimes that these people have dropped all the cases. This police officer was responding, and I'm going to explain to you why they were responding like this because there is some nuance to this in context. On the night of August 18th, 2020, Antifa militants threw a Molotov cocktail into the county sheriff's department headquarters as this rapid response team struggled to contain the riot. In a statement released after the indictment, Schmidt said, "In this case, we allege that no legal justification existed for Officer Budworth's deployment of force and that the deployment of force was legally excessive under the circumstances." But he still won't go after Antifa and violent rioters and arsonists. He just drops all those. This is the same DA that has dropped hundreds, I'm talking hundreds of violent cases of Antifa rioters, arsonists, and people that attempt murder. He's dropped these cases, but he goes after a police officer that was responding to these violent criminals with force. Makes no sense. We're not talking about we're talking about domestic terrorists here. That's who Antifa is. You guys saw what they did to Andy Ngo. They do the same to me if they found out I was on the ground in Portland as well. They do the same thing to you if they found out that you, if you're a conservative or someone that just disagrees with them, if they found out that you were out there, they would do the same thing to you. These are not political activists. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, these radical militants in Portland are not protesters. They're not activists. These people attack reporters. They attack opposition. They silence and they vet and they surveil opposition as well at their direct action, what they call protests. That's the truth, okay? And that's not my opinion. You're talking to someone that has covered these people undercover very extensively. Let's continue. My office will continue to do everything we can to ensure justice is done without error or delay, that we make sure our work and practices are rooted in fairness and equity, Schmidt said. Budworth is accused of hitting activists. Now notice how this is worded. Budworth is accused of hitting activist, photographer, and rioter. Okay, I'm glad that the Post-Millennial added that. Terry Jacobs with a baton. Videos posted to social media shows Budworth hitting Jacobs in the head from behind. Then again, as she falls to the ground. Video of the incident circulated on social media. I don't know if this will play from here.
Declared a riot. Leave the area now.
But this is some of the footage that was happening on Portland on the ground that night, I'm assuming. So here they make a targeted arrest.
Dispersed from the area, you can be subject to arrest or citation.
Already declared a riot.
Has been declared a riot.
There.
Leave the area now.
This is after Molotov cocktails were thrown.
Do not interfere with officers taking lawful action. Stay back.
So there's interference now.
Do not interfere with officers taking lawful action.
Multiple warnings to disperse.
Stay back.
Notice how he confiscates a riot shield. Look at, see? That's supposedly a photographer, I guess. Clearing the area. So, a lot of confusion here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that video. Let me know in the comment section if you can see it. But the article continues to go on to say, unfortunately, this decorated public servant has been caught in the crossfire of agenda-driven city leaders and a politicized criminal justice system. The police union wrote in a statement describing Jacobs as a criminal rioter. I'm going to explain to you why they're saying this. Budworth's indictment is a blatant attempt to hold police accountable. A source within the Portland Police Bureau told the Post-Millennial, stating that no victim came forward. Instead, they claimed that an attorney saw the video and approached Jacobs about pressing charges against the officer. So these so-called anti-police social justice warriors are being approached by attorneys, which is a form of law and order, to go after law and order. Makes no sense. So she wants justice, but she is someone that is against the current system of law and order in Portland. This is why this stuff doesn't make any sense. So what typically happens is the riot team gets called out to be prepared for a huge protest. Then patrol officers from all three precincts are on standby, which gets activated when the protest starts. This means all patrol calls go to priority calls only. Basically only active assault. See, this is a very specific unit. They're on standby at protests, but they're not purposely there for protests in case things get unlawful and violent, which they do in Portland. Everything in freaking Portland gets violent, okay? Priority calls only, basically only active assaults, shootings, and person crimes only get responded to. All other calls hold indefinitely until the protest is over or the next day, sources told the Post-Millennial. Now that the riot team is no more, we have no clue what's going to happen. We don't have enough patrol officers to be pulled from the road to handle huge crowds. This is a part of defunding the police. Now they're too distracted. Now they're outnumbered, so they can't patrol the hard criminals in the rest of the city, the rest of the state. So now they got to start pulling them from their patrols because now they don't have a rapid response team to handle Antifa. See how this works? A Portland police officer said, "We are only backups with no gear like the riot team has." This is ahead of massive demonstrations and protests that are planned for the upcoming weekend. Portland Police Association Executive Director Daryl Turner expressed concerns to the Lars Larson Show on Wednesday after the indictment, fearing officers would quit after the Tuesday prosecution of Officer Budworth, in which was described as a witch hunt. In October, County District Attorney Mike Schmidt rejected over 540 riot-related cases. Oh, but he claims to want justice, right? Absolutely not. This is politically motivated. Why can't he go after these 540 riot cases, drops them, rejects them, but so-called is this social justice warrior going after a police officer that responded with force? Because these people are throwing Molotov cocktails at them, trying to kill them? I'll explain the rhetoric that was behind this entire week as well. Take a look at this. In interest of justice, and has implemented catch and release policies for accused criminals and rioters. So, let's continue with this story. Let's take this down. So what happened yesterday was Ted Wheeler in a response because the rapid response team, they all quit. About 50 officers quit because this officer was indicted. And I'm going to explain to you, we're almost there. I'm going to explain to you why they're quitting. If you don't know how Portland is, if you don't know what's going down with Antifa, you don't understand why these police officers are using the kind of force that they're using, because they're defending themselves from violent criminals that are getting a pass from the DA over 540 riot-related cases. Rejected. People committing arson, attempted murder, attempting to burn down buildings, attempting to kill police officers. These cases get dropped, but that same DA comes out and says, oh, we want justice, so we're going to go after this officer that used excessive force. Do you know why they're using this kind of force? Because they're trying to kill them. They're trying to kill these police officers with Molotov cocktails, and Black Lives Matter activists, I have the video, I'm going to play it tonight, were calling for war against police officers 2 days before this incident. So that the so-called activists and the so-called protesters were literally calling for war against the police officers just 2 days before this officer responded with the force he did against this so-called political activist and photographer. War. Literal physical war. You don't believe me? Well, I'll play the clip right now, but give me a second. So since all 50, the entire rapid response team quit, walked out the door, Ted Wheeler panicked and called for an emergency meeting that same morning, which was yesterday, okay? Called for an emergency meeting, and I have a tweet here that I put up yesterday that went viral, if we can get this up. I put breaking. My insiders say Ted Wheeler was on a Zoom call today begging the riot response team, or the rapid response team, you can call it whatever you want, that's what they do, to not resign because Antifa has a riot scheduled tonight. Enjoy, Ted. And he indeed did. Let me pull you up. Here's the riot. And for people that don't know this, because like when I posted this, people were like, what do you mean Antifa posted a riot? What do you mean? Like, yes, they Twitter allows Antifa on their accounts to promote riots in Portland on their platform openly. I guess a lot of people didn't know this, but you know, that's what they do. So here is the actual, let me scroll down. I know that Andy had it up. There it was. This was it. In response to the news that all officers in Portland Police's riot response team has resigned, Antifa announced an event in the Pearl District for tonight. They have gathered in the area multiple times since last year, targeting businesses, homes, and residents with violence. So there are the flyers that come from the Defend PDX accounts. Anytime you see something like this, West Coast Whisper Web, hashtag PDX, Defend PDX, hashtag Black Lives Matter. You see these little, that's them, that's Antifa. They use different names on Twitter so they can avoid algorithms to be found. But Twitter can find them. Trust me, if they can find all these QAnon crazy people or whatever they claim to call them, they can find these people too. So they were promoting a riot yesterday. Antifa was publicly promoting this riot. Now, I heard it didn't go down, but they were still promoting it yesterday. So this is part of the reason why Ted Wheeler called this Zoom meeting, because he knew that Antifa, everyone in Portland, all the politicians in Portland, all the cops in Portland, they all know that Antifa publicly promotes their riots on Twitter, on social media. So I'm almost positive Ted Wheeler and the local government caught wind that there's a riot this night. He freaked out and called a Zoom meeting because he's an idiot, and now he's all defund the police. He's been defund the police. He's defunding the police. He doesn't back the police. So now his rapid response team walked out the door, all 50 of them. Now he's got a pull from regular police officers that aren't trained, that don't have the right equipment. So he got on a Zoom call to try and beg them not to go. You don't believe me? A lot of people were trying to question me and saying, oh, well, did that really happen? Yes, it did. Even local Oregon news. I'll show you right here. This is local. Oregon Live, the Oregonian. They confirmed that this meeting did indeed happen. Take a look. Mayor Ted Wheeler, who serves as police commissioner, Davis and Lovell met via video conference at 9 a.m. Thursday, the mayor also reached out to Governor Kate Brown and said the Oregon State Police will have its mobile response team on standby to assist Portland police if protests occur in the next few nights. So they're all worried about it. They're all freaking out now. The mayor also discussed backup support from the Oregon National Guard if necessary, according to his office. Isn't that like what Trump wanted to do? The mayor also invited rapid response team members to share their concerns directly with him during an 11 a.m. video conference call. Close to 40 officers appeared on the call. Wheeler reportedly asked the team members to delay their resignations from the team for a week so the police bureau could work out logistics for their replacement. But several officers on the conference could be seen visibly shaking their heads in opposition, according to one person present. Let's take this down. So yes, this meeting, this Zoom call did take place. Mayor Ted Wheeler was begging these guys not to quit and give him at least a week to find replacements because there was a riot announced for the same night and there's riots announced for the upcoming weekend and the upcoming week. But Ted Wheeler, in the public, tries to act tough every now and then. Ted Wheeler tries to provide optics for Antifa and Black Lives Matter sympathizers. We're fighting against justice. We're going to defend the police. We're going to defund the police. But behind closed doors, what is Ted Wheeler doing? Please don't resign now, guys. Please give us a week so we can find your replacements. Please give us a week so we can find your replacements. Please, guys. Please, guys. Don't resign now. Give us a week to find your replacements. We got a riot tonight. Loser. Fraud. You made this bed, Wheeler. You sleep in it. You dug this hole. You live in it. You wanted to defund the police. You wanted to side with domestic terrorists, okay? Through Black Lives Matter and Antifa locally in your state and in your city, Ted Wheeler. You wanted to side with the domestic terrorists. So you go side with the domestic terrorists. You go call Antifa factions in Portland to protect you, okay? Because now the Portland Police Bureau, now they're standing up for themselves, and as they should. And as they should continue. Because they don't deserve this. They don't deserve any of this. Being indicted for doing their jobs. Being indicted for protecting themselves. When Molotov cocktails are being thrown at them. When attempted murder is being committed against them. You know what, Ted Wheeler? You have been advocating to defund the police for months. And so now the police are turning their backs on you. So you figure it out, Ted. Portland's going to burn this summer. Because now the police officers, the rapid response team, they out. And as they should be. They should go to another department, get hired by another state, go to Florida, go to Arizona, go to Texas, go to some red state where they'll be appreciated and get a good job. The people will love them and actually really appreciate their sacrifice that they make on a daily basis. Go to another state, every single one of you guys. I encourage you. We support good cops, not bad cops. We support good cops on this show. I don't back the blue when they're bad cops or crooked cops. They exist. I'm gonna come out and say that. I'm not a liberal. I'm just honest. And a lot of conservatives don't like me when I talk like that, but I back the good blue. I support the good cops, the men and women that sacrifice their lives honorably on a daily basis for our safety to serve and to protect. But the bad cops, I don't support you. You guys should resign. But I am very glad that these officers resigned. They stood their ground. They're doing the right thing because Ted Wheeler needs to figure it out. If you're not going to support good cops, men and women in your precincts, in your bureau, if you're not going to support these people, why the hell should they support you? Makes sense. Oh, how this all ends up crashing down for Ted Wheeler. But this is what happens when you defund the police. This is what happens when you support the domestic terrorists and you don't support the men and women that are serving to protect your communities. This is what happens. Listen, Mayor Ted Wheeler has opened up a can of worms that he cannot close. And he opened it because it was good for him politically when Trump was in office. Now that Trump is gone, this isn't good for him anymore. Because you have a lot of moderates in Portland that don't want this stuff. And now that Orange Man is gone, all of the woke tards and the idiots in Portland that voted for Biden out of spite for Trump, thinking that the riots would go away because Trump is in office. Every single one of you woke tards that did this is on you too. This is literally on you, because you thought the problem was Trump. You thought that the problem was Trump's policies. You thought that the problem was Trump's rhetoric and not Antifa. You're an idiot. Because they're still there. They ain't going anywhere. Mayor Ted Wheeler has come out and try and be tough against them. And he's made statements saying, we're not putting up with Antifa anymore. He's calling them by name. But still, he opened up a can of worms that he cannot close. Not any longer. That's what happens when you open up your arms to Marxists and communists and anarchists and domestic terrorists. Portland's got a problem. I don't know how you guys are going to... I have no idea. Without some serious excessive force, I don't know how you guys are going to deal with Antifa. Anyone that goes out, listen, they are protected by the mainstream media. They're protected. Anytime someone uses force, they defend themselves. I guarantee you, Andy Ngo was attacked. I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, right? Andy Ngo was assaulted again in Portland, ran for his life because he was undercover reporting the riot. Andy Ngo ran for his life into a hotel. He asked them to call 911 because these people wanted to kill him on the street. The hotel didn't call 911. Andy had to call 911 himself. Okay? This is who these people are. I can assure you, if Andy defended himself, if he were to punch someone from Antifa in the face or in any way, shape, or form, if Andy defended himself in any way, shape, or form, he would have been at fault. And the law would have protected the domestic terrorists. This is what Ted Wheeler has done. This is what defund the police does. This is what Black Lives Matter has accomplished. Now law and order is in favor for the domestic terrorists, the radical Marxists, and the criminals in Black Lives Matter and Antifa and the rest of any criminal enterprise in the United States. And the innocent on the other side, you're the one that is lawless now. That's where we are. That's where we are. So I wanted to give you guys some background and some nuance, okay? Now I'm going to play you a video. Why did this police officer in Portland use this force against this so-called photographer, which is a rioter? What was going on? Was it just a protest? No. Was it just a demonstration? No. The police officers, listen, Portland Police Bureau, they give multiple warnings. You see it in the video I played you earlier. They give multiple warnings to disperse, even their so-called media, okay? But what Portland police officers know is that Antifa hides behind the disguise of a press badge on their chest or claiming to be press. Because these people are insurrectionists, they subvert the Constitution. They appear to be something that Americans take value in. Oh, that's someone of the press? How dare the police officers deal with them like that? But in reality, they're in disguise. They're Antifa. This happens way more frequently than you realize. So this so-called activist and photographer, I can almost assure you, is an Antifa sympathizer, is an Antifa co-worker, okay, is an Antifa collaborator. Most of the media and the so-called photographers, and not all of them, but you'll notice who is who. If you see these people posting stuff about Antifa, and it seems like Antifa isn't hurting them, or they're just around a bunch of Antifa militants taking pictures of their destruction or taking videos of their destruction, and there's a bunch of black bloc around them and they don't do anything to them, that person has been given a pass by Antifa for a reason. Always remember that when you watch this stuff on the internet. Whenever you see these journalists masquerading and Antifa's doing nothing to them, but they're not dressed in... Listen, not all Antifa wears black bloc. This is a fact. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys some information that was passed down to me. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Antifa isn't just the guys in black. Antifa has specific undercover people that pose as journalists, that look like journalists, but they also have people that do surveillance as well. So when you see some of the guys at an Antifa rally and they're just dressed normally, those aren't people that are neutral. Those are people that are playing a part for the media and for surveillance. You'll see them with their radios, you'll see them with their little earpieces, but they're not dressed in black bloc. They do their surveillance in normal clothing. Why? So people think that they're not Antifa because they're not wearing black bloc. A lot of journalists get this wrong too. I've told a lot of guys that you better know who's who out here, because if you don't, you're going to get caught slipping quick. And this is intelligence that I've been given from sources that I can't give out. So I do know a little more than the average journalist or reporter. That's probably why I've been more successful covering these people, because I have some serious intel on them. But you have to understand, anytime you see someone that claims to be a photographer or a reporter at one of these riots, you cannot take them at face value and just believe them. I can assure you, okay? Now, part of the climate in Portland, and I wanted to explain this, part of the climate in Portland during this time. So I was in Portland on the ground about 2 days before this alleged excessive force or assault that this officer commit against this so-called photographer, which is a rioter. I was there about maybe 2 or 3 days before this took place, okay? Black Lives Matter held a rally. Do you guys remember when Adam Hayner, the guy, Marquise Love, this is the first time I was on Tucker Carlson on Fox News because of this story. You guys remember the guy that got kicked in the head? That whole thing that took place? He drove his car away. The BLM militants were beating a white guy, then they beat a trans woman, then they ended up beating Adam Hayner, and then he drove his car away, crashed into a building, they pulled him out, then kicked him in the head, and Marquise Love ended up getting arrested. Do you want to know why Black Lives Matter hates me? Is because my reporting has gotten Black Lives Matter activists thrown in prison. That's why I get death threats from these people, okay? And not because I'm taking it out of context. Listen, The Intercept tried to say that my videos in regards to Marquise Love were edited out of context, that they weren't real. If that were true, why did law enforcement, they did an investigation on this entire thing, and my footage ended up lining up with the surveillance footage in the area? Oh yes, I've sent in, my footage has gone into law enforcement and has gotten Black Lives Matter activists thrown in prison. That's why I get death threats from Antifa. That's why I get death threats from Black Lives Matter, because I expose these people for who they really are. Now, if you guys remember that was just a couple days before this, all right? I was on the ground and I was recording a speech from a Black Lives Matter leader and activist, okay? I think her name was Letha Winston or Wilson or something like that, okay? She was giving a speech. She was calling for war against the police department in Portland. She was calling them. She was calling for the activists. She kept referring to the crowd as her comrades. Okay, you're gonna see in this video. She was making threats, saying that they're about to get armed up. That flashbangs aren't gonna be able to do anything to stop them anymore. She was using some very violent rhetoric against the local police department in Portland just days before this police officer used this force against this so-called photographer. There were death threats. There were calls for war against the local police department. So this is why, okay, the police department in Portland was responding with this kind of force. You don't believe me? You won't see this on the mainstream media. Take a look.
We are at war. Are you guys ready? Are you ready to jump on this battlefield for justice? Can you jump on this battlefield for justice? Will you jump on this battlefield for justice? Will you fight for justice? You got to fight, 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 you got to fight. I done had many black lives, and I am mad. This is war. We're gonna turn up to the point where we're gonna be too hot for them to even handle. They gonna need more than a gas, whatever you call it, a flashbang. They better come with something harder than that, cause we getting ready to get armored up around here. You gonna need more than a flashbang to fuck with us. Anybody that's really down for justice, you got to know it's two ways to justice. It's either justice or the highway. With me. If you're not out here doing justice like I'm doing justice, goodbye. I don't have time for the games. I got anxiety like I don't know what, but guess what? You think that's gonna stop Patrick Kimmon's mama from getting justice? No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will continue my mission by any means necessary.
Any means necessary, huh?
I said I will continue my mission for justice by any means necessary. I don't think y'all hear me. I'm going to say it one more time. I said that I will continue my mission for justice to hold police accountable for murders and murdering our people by any means necessary. And I'm sure we all know what any means necessary is and how it can go. Your mother's umbilical cord should have wrapped around your neck and choked you just the way you choked George Floyd, you filthy animal. Not only should that umbilical cord should have wrapped around your neck, it should not have wrapped around your neck once. It should have wrapped around your neck two times, not 6 times or 7 times. It should have wrapped around your neck so many times to where you yelled, "I cannot breathe."
This is a psychopath speaking.
That umbilical cord wrapped around your neck 7 times. God damn it, she should have spit you out the back of her. You think that you a good person because you have a gun. My comrades already know. I tell them every Thursday, right there in their face, I know you got a gun, but so do I. Go ahead and shoot me. I'm shooting back. Am I lying, my comrades? You shoot me, I'm gonna shoot you back. You, just because you got a gun, you got a permit, but I got one too. You just ain't abiding by your permit rules. You need to be charged with murder. They need to hang you high, not hang you low. They need to send you to the electric chair and let you fry like a piece of burnt bacon. Stomp on that ass until you can't even get peeled up off the pavement.
Okay, this was the rhetoric that was coming from the so-called protesters, Black Lives Matter and Antifa in Portland just a couple days before this officer responded with the force he did against this so-called photographer, okay, Antifa collaborator, Antifa sympathizer, all right? They were already throwing Molotov cocktails just days after this woman made this speech. I was there. I was there in Portland. I recorded that myself. I heard that with my own 2 ears, and I pushed record and recorded the whole thing. She was calling for the death of police officers. She said we were at war. She was calling for her comrades to understand that she's ready by any means necessary to achieve her justice. And she was making that very clear that she was ready for physical violence, and that was all against police officers and the local police officers in Portland. I recorded that whole thing. This is the kind of rhetoric that was stirring up the protesters and the Antifa rioters locally in Portland just days before this police officer used that force against this so-called photographer in Portland. That is why the police officers, not just the Molotov cocktails were coming, the death threats were coming, the attempted arson was coming. This is what people were preaching at their rallies before their direct action at nights throughout the entire summer. These people are the insurrectionists. These people are the domestic terrorists. These people are the violent actors. These people are the ones that are getting people killed in the streets, that are getting arson that are getting people to commit arson, that are getting people to commit attempted murder in Portland through Black Lives Matter and Antifa. This was the rhetoric that the local police department in Portland was having to deal with, and it amplified and it emboldened the so-called protesters and rioters in Portland, which led to the police officers, the rapid response team, to respond aggressively the way that they did. What would you do? What would you do if these people are calling for war against you? What would you do if these people were calling for you to be killed? What would you do if you're hearing this intel? You think that the Portland Police Department doesn't view my Twitter and listen to what I'm putting out on the internet? Of course they do. Of course they do. So they know what they're up against. Because the mainstream media won't go cover this. The mainstream media won't go down there and show what's really happening. It takes real men and real women to show these things. Now, there's one thing that I want to give you a little bit of an analysis. You won't hear this anywhere else, okay? I don't care. You won't hear this from anyone else that hasn't covered Antifa on the ground, especially summer 2020. I can guarantee you. Antifa has been paranoid for the past 2 months, 3 months. This is why you haven't seen that much footage coming out of Antifa. They've had a few riots here and there, but nothing as consistent as it was last year of 2020. Part of the reason why Antifa hasn't been as active as they were in 2020, not because they're losing steam, not because they're losing funding, or not because they're losing optics, or they're losing numbers. The main reason is because there have been informants that have infiltrated Antifa the past 3 months and have slapped on them, and they've literally caught them with evidence, video evidence, to slap on some serious federal charges on some of these rioters the past couple months. And what's happened is Antifa's been extremely paranoid. You haven't been seeing them rioting. The last time I went and covered them, I was shocked to see them actually running away from cops. That was something new that I saw the past couple months. But there's been informants that's been documenting them, that's been capturing them committing crime, that has infiltrated them the past couple months, and Antifa has lost it. Their unity has been shattered. They're paranoid against one another. They don't know who's who. It's actually hilarious. I'm going to be honest with you. Now, that was progress against Antifa in Portland. But now we've seen a bit of a pushback. I believe, I'm giving you my opinion now. I'm giving you my speculation. I think it's interesting that there was some progress against Antifa with these informants that were slapping some serious federal charges on these people. It really discouraged Antifa. It put some fear in their hearts because now they're not emboldened to go out and commit violence. So I find it interesting, and this is my opinion and my speculation. I find it interesting that after this progress was made in Portland with the informants these past couple of months, all of a sudden the DA turns around and goes after a police officer over something that happened last year in August. And the so-called victim wasn't even the one that came forward to report it or seek legal counsel. It was someone within the local government. It was someone within the local Portland government that went after this police officer. To me, that sounds like local political retaliation. I'm just giving you my speculation. When there's progress being made with these informants, they're getting into Antifa, they're dismantling Antifa. They were making some good progress the last couple months. They really scared these people. Trust me, I've been watching it. All right, I'm giving you guys some intel that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Okay, they've been making some progress, but all of a sudden, the DA, the local government, some of these officials, they go after a police officer over something that happened a year ago. And the alleged victim wasn't even the one that initiated the entire thing. To me, that sounds like a pushback against the actual good guys inside the Portland Police Bureau that are actually going after Antifa. And it sounds like the crooked legal officials inside the Portland Police Bureau, the DA, I'm not sure, someone under Ted Wheeler is pushing back. There's a conflict there. You can see it, and there's this corruption within the department. There's this corruption within, obviously, the law enforcement. Not all of them are bad, but I think that's exactly what we saw, because we saw some of the informants were making progress. There are still good guys in the PPB in Portland, the Portland Police Bureau. I know them, but there's also some bad guys a little further on the top, and I think that was a direct retaliation. That's just my opinion. That's just my speculation. That's what it looks like. They're making progress with the informants, and then there's a retaliation from the DA against a police officer over something that happened a year ago, and the alleged victim wasn't even the one that initiated it. Doesn't make any sense. I find that sus. And I'll leave it at that. Another thing I want people to understand, the so-called journalist or reporter. You have to understand, Antifa has people designated in disguise as press in order to deceive the eye. Not just the police. The police officers know. They know that these people are not really press. They deal with this on a nightly basis, man. You think they ain't got the intel? If I got the intel, of course they got the intel. Antifa designates individuals to pose as press. When you think about Antifa, think about it like the NFL or a football team, offense or defense. Let's just use offense as an example. Whenever you see these riots, they got a playbook, okay? They have a squad. They're in formations. When you see the guys with the shields, those are like the linemen. When you see the guys with the umbrellas, that's like another form of the linemen. That's like their defense to hide them and to shield them from things that are coming from the police officers or the rapid response team or the riot response team, right? When you see the guys in black bloc, notice this in the footage, okay? When you see the guys in the black bloc, they'll run from the back. Sometimes it'll be 2 or it'll be 4. They'll run from the back of the shield line, or the guys with the umbrellas. They'll run from the back and they'll run to the front and they'll throw a Molotov cocktail. They'll throw a rock at a police officer, or they'll throw a water bottle that's been frozen to use as a weapon, or they'll throw a brick. They'll run from the back to the front, chuck it, throw it, and then they'll run straight back and receive cover from the guys with the shields and the guys. I'm giving you guys some insider information here, okay? And then you got the guys with the leaf blowers. They all play a part, every single one of them. And then you got their surveillance and their comms. Now, the surveillance guys are not wearing black bloc. You'll see them with radios sometimes, and you'll see them with earpieces sometimes. But the surveillance guys are just walking around in normal clothing because they don't want to seem, because the public appearance of Antifa are the guys wearing all black. Not so. Sometimes their surveillance are wearing normal clothes and they have radios on them. Sometimes they'll have scouts walk around the protests dressed in normal clothes and walk up to people that they're suspecting that don't belong and say, "Hey, what's your name? Where are you from?" And if you're not aware, you'll sit there and say, well, if you're just like a stupid reporter, you'll be like, "Oh, well, I'm from Newsmax, or I'm from OAN, or and there you go. They just got you. I've seen this. I know it. Listen, I'm giving you guys some intel that I just want my viewers to know, because this is how these people function. They are organized, okay? They are an organization. And then they have their press as well. Their press are dressed normally as well. They're wearing helmets and they wear their vests. And obviously they say press across their chest, or they'll say press on their helmets. Now, this is specific. Their press is not there just to document. I've documented these people. We've seen these videos where we'll actually see press get involved with some of the arrests. Sometimes press will form like a human shield in front of police officers in order to run cover for the criminals behind them, to shield them from what they're doing or what they're going to do next. They'll act like they're taking pictures, pretending to dox the police officers. That's a role. And they hide behind the First Amendment, claiming freedom of press, when in reality, they're using the First Amendment of the Constitution to do some kind of criminal activity, to collaborate with Antifa. That's what they do, man. And then you got Joe Biden out there saying that, oh, Antifa is it's just an idea. No. It's an organization. This is what defund the police gets you, okay? Ted Wheeler, you made this bed, you sit in it. Ted Wheeler, you dug this hole, you live in it. Ted Wheeler wanted to open up a can of worms and side with the communists, side with the domestic terrorists. He wanted to side with the anarchists. Listen, it may have gone well for you while you had Trump in office because it made Trump look bad and you had someone to blame. But now Trump's gone, Wheeler. Now you got Biden and you can't get rid of these people. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what it's going to take to get rid of these neo-Marxists, these neo-communists, these domestic terrorists that attack people on a daily basis in your city that disagree with them, that commit lawlessness, and now your own rapid response team has walked out on you, and now you're having, listen, another one of my sources were telling me that Ted Wheeler is literally pulling from different regions in the city, just regular officers to serve as the new rapid response team without the right gear or without the right training. How do you think that's going to end? This is on Ted and all the woke tards that keep voting for Ted. I'll leave it at that. And that support Black Lives Matter and Antifa locally. Ted Wheeler is a two-faced idiot. And I'm just going to encourage the people of Portland, stop voting for this stuff. Homicides have gone up, crime has gone up, and police officer numbers go down. This is the model that the radical communist, Marxists, and neo-anarchists want to roll out across the United States of America. Don't underestimate them. They've gotten this far. Don't think that they can't get any further. Because in history's past, we've seen the communists, we've seen the anarchists be successful, and it always ends in bloodshed. Alrighty, guys, let's take some super chats. I hope you guys appreciate some of that intel, man. That's just some of my... There's a reason why I'm one of the best undercover journalists that cover Antifa and BLM, and that's just some of my intel. So yeah, let's do some super chats. If you guys got to head out for the weekend, I understand it, but if you guys got to head out right now, please subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification, and toggle on the all selection, and share this video, please, right now. But we do super chats at the end of every single show. This is how you can support me. You can check out the merch store for some cool merch. If you're a guy or you're a gal, check out some of the merch. The merch link is in the description below. That is how you can support this show and support this channel. If you could do me a huge favor also, and share this video far and wide wherever you can. But we do super chats at the end of every single show. So if you would like to support my channel and support what I'm doing here on this show, drop a super chat right now. Ask me something that you want to know. Ask me something. It doesn't have to be about Antifa. It could be about the border. It could be about American politics, world politics, anything, whatever you guys want to talk about, pop culture, whatever. That is how you guys could support me. So let's do some super chats before I head out for the weekend. We got some cool stuff coming up next week as well. I can't wait to roll out. Want to thank every single one of you guys for the continued support here on this channel. So we got a couple super chats. I'll read them right now before we head out. There it is. Sorry about that. Thank you guys very much. Alrighty. We have one super chat from Hydrip. I think that's it. We have a $5 super chat from Hydrip. We salute you. Hydrip says, anyone going along with this Juneteenth do not realize it will usher in more CRT. Absolutely. What you need to understand is what Black Lives Matter has done and the neo-Marxists have done is they've taken everything. If you notice, everything is an attack on American values. Everything is a replacement for American values. Notice how, listen, let's just say that the purpose of Juneteenth, right? The purpose of what it stands for, okay? Let's just say that we were going to make that a federal holiday. Why does it have to be a replacement for July 4th? Listen to what I'm saying. Why do they want it to be a replacement for July 4th? They don't want it to be not a substitute, but an extra thing that you could celebrate, right? Why do they want that? You want to know why they want that? Because they want to replace American values. It's not about celebrating something they care about. This is what a lot of people don't understand. It's about replacing American values. It's about replacing something that stands for America. That's what they want. It's not really, it's like I think this is the best example I can give. Black Lives Matter is not about black lives. It's not really about that. Have you guys figured that out yet? Black Lives Matter doesn't talk about the black on black crime. They don't give a damn. Lori Lightfoot, she calls she calls a state of emergency in Chicago because of racism. Did you guys hear about this? She called a state of emergency in Chicago because of racism. Yet the black on black crime is skyrocketing on a daily basis, and she don't say a damn word about it. Where is Black Lives Matter on that one? I can already hear the woketards. Well, Black Lives Matter is about police brutality. The numbers of black on black crime are worse than police officers committing anything against black people in this country. Fact. So that premise doesn't even make sense statistically. And if it did, I'd give you an ear to it. Black Lives Matter isn't even about black people. They don't care that they're slaughtering their own people on a daily basis. The title means nothing to the organization. Okay, well, I'll give you that. If Black lives really mattered, why have almost virtually the majority of the parents that Black Lives Matter has branded of their children on t-shirts and promotional material and raised billions of dollars off of to buy mansions and all this garbage? Why aren't they giving them anything? And why are those parents coming out and saying, where is Black Lives Matter for us? Where's the organization? They just raised money off of our dead black kids. It's the same thing. Just because it's called something doesn't mean it doesn't have a different agenda behind it. That's the point I'm trying to make. This whole Juneteenth thing, they might say, oh, it's about the last slave being freed. It's about the slaves being freed. And us as black people just want to celebrate. That's not what it's about. It's about subverting and erasing something else that represents America. That's what they do. That's what they continue to do. That's what this whole thing is about. So don't fall for it. Don't fall for this garbage. All righty, let's see. We have another super chat from Deborah Beniot. Deborah Beniot with the super sticker. Thank you very much. We appreciate the support. We have another super chat from Heck Tech Design, a $5 super chat. We salute you. Heck Tech Design says, if Antifa didn't have a victim mentality, they'd have no mentality. It's easy to make fun of Antifa, but at the same time, these people are a dangerous threat. Because I'll tell you one thing. If you go out to one of these riots and you cover them like I do, you're not out there trolling these people. You're not out there making fun of these people. They're extremely organized. They're well-funded. They know what they're doing. If you make one mistake, and Andy No will tell you, they'll get you. You could lose your life out there. I know it's easy to make fun of Antifa and they're LARPers and they seem mindless and they seem dumb and they're just a bunch of whiny, crying babies, but these people have power right now, especially locally. I mean, they've accomplished a lot. Antifa and Black Lives Matter have accomplished a lot in this country. It's not a good accomplishment. I mean, if you're the co-founder of BLM, you've literally branded dead black people to fill your pockets with millions of dollars. So I guess in that context, yeah, it's an accomplishment for you. But they have successfully defunded the police, the communists and the anarchists. These people know what they're doing. Do not underestimate them, because if you do, you're going to find out that you shouldn't have. Absolutely. All righty, let me refresh this to see if we have any more super chats real quick. Okay, we have another $10 super chat from Elizabeth Weddle. We salute you. Elizabeth Weddle says, what can we do to counter mob violence and protect the Constitution while enforcing police morale? I get a water. What can we do to counter mob violence and protect the Constitution while enforcing police morale? I think the police actually have to enforce the law, because rioting is illegal. And what's happened right now is that the laws have been subverted and they've been turned against the innocent and they've been made in favor. If we're talking about Portland here, this is what we're continuing to see. I'll give you an example. Right now in Portland, because the DA has dropped over 500 riot-related cases, that's already going against the law. Straight up. Let's say you're in Portland right now. Antifa, you get caught up with Antifa in the streets. Okay? These kids are so protected that if you find yourself in the streets with Antifa and they ask you, hey, are you a Trump supporter? And you say, yeah, I was. And they beat the hell out of you. They bust your face. you're bleeding all over the place, and you defend yourself and you bust someone else's face, I can assure you the DA will go after you and not them. That's my point. My point is, law and order has been so subverted and inverted. Police officers, I think this is what needs to take place. Police officers are going to have to actually enforce the law. They're going to have to reject commissioners or police captains or people that are telling them not to enforce riot laws, that are telling them to go too easy. I think police officers are actually going to have to uphold their constitution and start violating some of their captains and start rejecting some of the unconstitutional orders that are coming from the top down by enforcing the actual laws. And once that happens, I think if we continue to prosecute these people, listen, it's very basic and very simple. Whenever there's crime done or whenever there's something bad being done, if there's no consequence to it, people see no reason to stop. There's no fear. There's no reason to not do it any longer because they know that there won't be any consequences. The hammer of the law needs to be dropped on these violent arsonists, insurrectionists, and domestic terrorists. That's what needs to happen. Look what the FBI has done to Trump supporters at the Capitol. Why aren't they doing that to Antifa? Why aren't they doing that to Black Lives Matter? I know the answer to that question, but I'm trying to get you to think. That's what they should do against BLM and Antifa, because that would be righteous and that would be the right thing to do because they're the real domestic terrorists. We need to continue to uphold the law. We need to continue to enforce the law. It's not being enforced. And anytime it is, someone gets fired. Anytime a police officer defends themselves from people throwing Molotov cocktails at them by using a little harsher force, they get fired and indicted. That shouldn't be happening. We're siding with domestic terrorists rather than good cops that are there to protect us. That's what happens. That's exactly what happens when you do this. Alrighty, let me see. See if we have any more super chats, guys, real quick. Alrighty, guys, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. We do this show Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If I, for any reason, because I'm I do on the ground reporting. Sometimes I'm traveling across the nation or I'm traveling in a different state. I do my best to do the show on the road. So if I can, I will. If I can't, I will let you know on the community tab on this channel. So make sure to be subscribed and hit that bell notification because if I don't do a show, I'll alert you right there, guys. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. And I'm truly, truly thankful for you guys for tuning in tonight. So thank you. I hope you guys have an amazing week this weekend. Stay safe, you guys. If you're living in an area where it's super hot, extremely hot, and you're experiencing a heat wave, I encourage you guys to stay cool, man. Stay cool. So I will see you guys next week. And until next time, America, stay free.